Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
What if the greatest weapon for success wasn't louder than a whisper? Imagine the possibility that silence, not noise, has been the hidden strength behind history's most influential leaders. Could it be that true power is not spoken, but felt? Think about it. When you master silence, you create an aura that commands respect. The room shifts, and people lean in, waiting for your next move. But how does silence become strength? How can it turn into the very tool that helps you win in every situation? The truth is simple, yet overlooked. Silence gives your mind space to breathe. The most successful people often appear the calmest. While others rush, they step back. While others speak, they think. In those quiet moments, clarity forms, ideas surface, and hidden solutions reveal themselves. When you are always talking or surrounded by noise, your best ideas remain buried. But when you allow yourself stillness, your mind begins to connect unseen dots. Answers to lingering problems suddenly appear. That's the secret weapon of silence. Take Senator Marcus Townsend in 1962. During a tough election, falling behind in polls, he chose not to push harder with speeches. Instead, he withdrew to his cabin for a weekend in complete silence. People thought he had surrendered. Yet in that solitude, he discovered clarity about what voters truly needed. When he returned, his message was different. It wasn't louder or flashier, it was more authentic. People immediately sensed the change, and his campaign took a dramatic turn. Later, he admitted those 2 quiet days changed everything. Are you giving your mind the silence it needs to work for you? What problems might solve themselves if you gave them space? What brilliant ideas might be waiting for you in those still moments? Noise keeps you reactive, but silence makes you creative. Most people avoid silence because it feels uncomfortable at first. Yet this discomfort is only your mind adjusting to a new kind of power. Do you have the courage to remain quiet when everyone else is making noise? The truth is, the wisest person in the room is rarely the one speaking. It's the one watching and listening. Look at truly successful people. They ask questions, they observe, and they learn from those around them before making decisions. Why does silent observation work so well? Because information is everywhere if you're quiet enough to notice it. Every person carries lessons from their experiences, and every situation offers clues about what works and what doesn't. But when you're busy talking or planning your next words, you miss those priceless lessons unfolding right in front of you. The good news? You can master this skill with practice. Next time you're in a meeting, challenge yourself to speak only half as much as usual. Instead, focus on how others communicate. What makes one person persuasive? What causes another to be ignored? In social settings, watch closely. Who naturally draws people in, and who unknowingly pushes them away? Don't just hear words, see expressions. Notice timing. Feel how the energy in the room shifts. These small observations become your private education. Eleanor Whitfield, for example, turned a small shop into a retail empire using this exact approach. While her competitors tried to talk customers into what they thought they wanted, she simply watched how people moved through her stores. She noticed where they paused, what they touched, and what made them put items back. In strategy meetings, she spoke rarely, but when she did, her insights were so sharp that others wondered how she knew. "I just pay attention," she would reply. Her quiet observations led to store layouts that doubled sales, while her talkative competitors went bankrupt. When was the last time you learned something valuable just by watching? Could your next breakthrough come not from a book or a course, but by paying closer attention to what's already around you? The next time you feel pressured to speak up to prove yourself, remember, the real power may be in staying silent and noticing what others miss. Will you choose to be the loudest voice or the most insightful mind? True mastery begins with emotional control. Real power isn't shown in how strongly you react, but in how calmly you respond. Think of the most respected leaders. When tensions rise, they pause before speaking. That silence is not weakness, it's their greatest strength. Emotional reactions happen in an instant and often bring regret. When someone criticizes your idea, questions your ability, or challenges your authority, your first response comes from emotion, not wisdom. It may feel satisfying for a moment, but it can damage relationships and reputations for years. The silence between trigger and response is where your true power lies. Developing this skill begins with recognizing your emotional triggers. Notice the physical signs: faster heartbeat, tense muscles, rising heat. These are warnings. When you sense them, take a deliberate pause. Breathe deeply, and if needed, count to 5. Ask yourself, what result do I want from this moment? Let that answer, not your emotions, shape your response. Practice this pause in small situations so it becomes natural when bigger challenges arise. Think back. When was the last time anger or frustration pushed you to say something you later regretted? How different would life feel if you controlled the space between events and your response? Anyone can react emotionally. It takes real strength to answer with purposeful silence. The next time tension rises, will you show power through immediate words or through the calm silence that proves you cannot be provoked? This is the art of strategic patience. The greatest dreams often take root in silence. Look at any remarkable achievement, and you'll see most of the work happened quietly before the world ever noticed. Too many ideas die from early exposure. Share your goals too soon, and critics attack before they're ready. Others may steal your vision. Even worse, simply talking about your plans tricks your brain into feeling rewarded, making you less motivated to finish. The most successful people avoid this trap, working silently until results speak louder than words. Use strategic silence by breaking goals into stages. In the foundation stage, share only with those directly involved. Build proof that your idea works before announcing it widely. Document progress privately. Create a small version that shows your concept in action. Only when you have something solid, not just an idea, but a working start, should you expand your circle. Let curiosity build naturally about what you're creating. Margaret Finley followed this path, spending 2 years developing her groundbreaking retail system while still holding her regular job. When colleagues asked about her evenings, she simply said she was working on a home project. Even family received only vague answers. While competitors loudly promoted similar ideas and then suffered public failure, she refined her system quietly. By the time she revealed her company, it wasn't just an idea. She already had 3 paying clients and proven results. When asked why she kept silent for so long, she replied, "Seeds don't grow well when constantly dug up to check their progress." What dream are you carrying that might flourish with less talk and more quiet action? Have you noticed how motivation sometimes fades after sharing your plans too early? The energy you spend talking about what you'll do is energy not spent doing it. So, the next time you feel the urge to announce your big vision, ask yourself, would this idea grow stronger if you nurtured it in silence a little longer? Would you push harder if the only encouragement came from your own intuition guiding you forward? That inner nudge toward or away from certain choices isn't random, it's wisdom. Successful people listen carefully to this voice. It doesn't shout, it whispers, and it can only be heard in silence. In today's noisy world of constant opinions and endless advice, many lose touch with their inner wisdom. Yet research shows our brains process far more than we consciously realize. That gut feeling isn't mere emotion, it's your mind connecting unseen dots. Ignore it, and you often say, "I knew I should have." The best decisions come when external knowledge and inner wisdom work together. To reconnect with this intuition, you must create spaces of silence. Before important meetings, take a quiet walk alone without distractions. Sit still for 5 minutes instead of filling the time with more preparation. When weighing options, ask first, what feels right, before asking, what makes logical sense. Learn to distinguish between fear and genuine intuitive caution. This ability shaped Dikuri Yamada's reputation for seemingly impossible market predictions. He sold all his holdings just weeks before a major crash. Competitors studied the same data but came to the opposite conclusion. When financial reporters pressed him to explain his method, he baffled them by describing his daily 3-hour walks in the garden. In noise, I can only hear what others are saying. In silence, I can hear what the situation is saying, he explained. His company went on to survive 3 market collapses that destroyed many others. This unusual habit of silent reflection before major decisions became legendary. When was the last time you felt that quiet knowing that proved right, even when the facts suggested otherwise? What decisions are you facing now that might benefit less from endless research and more from calm reflection? This inner voice will not compete with noise. It waits patiently in silence. Will you create the space it needs to be heard? Have you noticed how people strain to listen when someone speaks softly? The constant talker gets tuned out, but when the quiet person finally speaks, everyone leans in. This is no coincidence. It's the power of selective silence. Speaking less makes your words worth more. Most people feel uneasy with silence and rush to fill every gap with chatter. They repeat themselves, weaken their arguments with too many examples, and dilute strong points with unnecessary detail. When you talk constantly, people hear only noise. But when you speak with purpose and precision, your words carry weight. Silence gives value to your thoughts. To develop this confidence, start by counting your words in conversations. Challenge yourself to express the same idea with fewer sentences. Before speaking, ask yourself, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said right now? Practice becoming comfortable with silence in conversations. Don't rush to fill pauses. When asked a question, take a moment before answering. Quality thinking leads to quality speaking. Thomas Blackwell proved this when he transformed his company. At his first board meeting, directors were surprised as he sat silently through 2 hours of discussion on declining profits. When he finally spoke, just 3 sentences reframed the entire problem. Later, when asked why he waited, he explained, "I needed to understand the full picture before offering a solution." Speaking sooner would have only added to the confusion. Within months, his reputation for thoughtful silence became so strong that his rare statements almost immediately shaped company policy. Meanwhile, peers who constantly spoke at every meeting found their opinions carried less weight. Are you weakening your influence by speaking too often? What might happen if you cut your words in half, but doubled your thinking time? Silence shows confidence in your ideas. They don't need constant defending or endless explanation. Most people speak to feel important or to ease nervous energy. But what if your silence, not your words, is what makes others truly value your contribution? The next time you feel pressured to speak right away, will you have the confidence to remain silent until you have something worth saying? Look around at the people who constantly talk about their goals, plans, and dreams. Then look at those quietly making progress every day. Which group do you think achieves more? The answer reveals a powerful truth about success. Attention and achievement often move in opposite directions. When you seek attention before finishing the work, you create 3 problems. First, you waste energy on appearances instead of progress. Second, you invite judgment and criticism too early. Third, and most dangerous, you trick yourself into feeling accomplished just because others recognize you've started. The brain gives a small reward from talking about goals, which can actually reduce motivation to achieve them. True achievers understand this trap. They focus on progress, not publicity. Practice silent achievement. Keep a private progress journal instead of posting constant updates. Set clear milestones before sharing your journey. Choose one accountability partner rather than announcing goals to everyone. When asked what you're working on, learn the art of giving an interesting but vague answer, enough to satisfy curiosity without revealing details. Channel your desire for recognition into more productive effort. Knowing real results will always earn more meaningful attention than empty announcements. Rebecca Chen proved this when she stunned the sports world by setting a new record no one expected. While other runners broadcast every training session, she worked quietly with a single coach. Her competitors became minor celebrities before the race, but she prepared in silence. This gave her a deeper satisfaction that made the painful parts of training seem less important. When asked about her quiet approach, she said simply, "Applause feels better when you've earned it through results, not intentions." What goal are you talking about more than working toward? How different might your progress look if you turned that energy into silent action? Remember, attention for what you plan to do feels good for a moment, but recognition for what you've already achieved builds lasting confidence. The world is full of people announcing journeys they never complete. Will you be someone who talks about achievement or someone who silently creates it? Consider how people usually respond to hardship, complaints, excuses, explanations. Now look at the truly successful. They often meet difficulty with silence, not because they lack words, but because they reserve their energy for solutions. Talking about problems only multiplies their power over you. Each time you explain why something is hard, why you can't move forward, or why frustration is justified, you strengthen the problem's grip on your mind. Silence in difficulty isn't denial, it's strategic focus. It contains your energy and directs it toward solutions instead of explanations. Build this strength by creating a complaint-free zone around yourself. When challenges come, give yourself a brief moment to acknowledge frustration, then close the door on it. Make a personal rule. If you must speak about a problem, you must also propose a solution. Practice asking questions instead of making negative statements. Ask, "What can I learn here?" rather than, "Why is this happening to me?" And when others invite you into their complaints, politely redirect the conversation toward possible actions. Samuel Crawford lived this principle powerfully when a catastrophic tunnel collapse trapped his team underground. While others panicked and blamed faulty equipment, Crawford remained silent. Instead of debating what went wrong, he methodically tested possible escape routes. When asked about the cause, he simply replied, "That conversation helps no one right now." His calm focus spread through the group. After their successful escape, he explained, "Words of worry waste breath. Underground, a breath is precious." The same principle applies to any crisis. Think back. When you last faced a serious setback, how much energy went into explaining instead of overcoming it? What challenge right now might improve with less talk and more action? Talking about problems may ease your feelings for a moment, but it rarely improves your situation. Most people use words to escape difficulty. The successful use silence as a path through it. The next time trouble strikes, will you add your voice to the chorus of complaint, or will you find strength in strategic silence? Consider this when it comes to learning without defensiveness. How do you usually react when someone points out a mistake or suggests an improvement? Most people defend, explain, or counter with criticism. But those who grow the fastest often respond first with silence, listening fully before they speak. Defensive reactions block your greatest opportunities for growth. When your first response is justification, you miss the valuable insight hidden in the criticism. Your mind focuses on defending instead of improving. Even if feedback is partly wrong, it usually contains some truth worth considering. Silent receptivity doesn't mean you agree with everything. It means you are strong enough to reflect before responding. Victoria Ellis transformed her career with this very approach. After losing an important match, reporters watched as her coach gave harsh criticism about her technique. Instead of responding defensively, Ellis stayed completely silent, nodding occasionally as she took notes. Other players typically argued or tried to explain away similar feedback. 3 months later, Ellis returned with subtle but powerful changes to her style of play. When she won the championship, she credited that difficult conversation. "If I had been busy defending my old approach, I never would have fully understood the new one. Silence gave me room to grow." When was the last time you received criticism and your first instinct was to explain or defend? What improvements might you uncover if you welcomed feedback with curious silence instead of immediate justification? Defensiveness may feel good in the moment, but it blocks long-term growth. Most people fiercely defend their current position. The successful defend their future potential. So the next time someone gives you hard feedback, will you choose the short-term comfort of defense or the lasting benefit of silent growth? Notice how quickly people offer opinions about what you should do with your life, your career, or your relationships. Everyone has advice. Yet the most successful people make their biggest decisions within a protective silence, away from outside voices. Other people's opinions come from their maps, not yours. When you make life choices surrounded by noise, whether from friends, family, or society, you risk living someone else's version of success. External voices can easily drown out your inner wisdom. Even well-meaning advice reflects someone else's fears, values, and experiences, which may not match your unique path. The most authentic decisions emerge in silence, where you can hear your own truth. Create this decision-making silence by stepping back from sources of influence before any major choice. Avoid asking for opinions until you've clarified your own thinking. Take a walk alone or write down your thoughts privately before sharing them. Ask yourself, if no one would ever know about this decision, what would I choose? That question cuts through concerns about appearances and reconnects you with your true desires. Marcus Wilson shocked fans when he turned down a record-breaking contract with a championship team to play for less money on an underdog team. For 2 weeks after receiving both offers, he disappeared from the public eye, speaking only to his wife. Sports writers filled pages with speculation and advice. When he finally announced his choice, reporters demanded an explanation. He said, "I made this decision in silence, and that silence showed me what matters most to me. I can't expect you to understand a journey you weren't part of." His unconventional decision ultimately led to innovations in playing style that defined his legendary career. What major decision are you facing right now? How might your perspective shift if you created a sanctuary of silence around it? Remember, external voices are loudest when decisions matter most, precisely when you need to hear yourself clearly. Most people make life's biggest choices surrounded by noise. The successful create quiet spaces where authentic wisdom can surface. Will you allow others' opinions to shape your path, or will you find the silence to hear your own? Consider the difference between seeking meaning and seeking recognition. Look at those who constantly talk about making a difference versus those quietly creating change every day. One group looks for recognition of their intentions. The other creates impact through their actions. This contrast reveals much about true purpose. Announcing good intentions often replaces doing good work. When you publicly declare a desire to help others or make change, you receive an immediate social reward. This creates a dangerous illusion, the feeling of being purposeful without the effort of creating true impact. Real purpose doesn't need constant validation. It finds fulfillment in the work itself and in the results it produces, whether anyone notices or not. Build silent purpose by focusing on outcomes rather than recognition. Ask yourself, would I still do this work if no one ever knew it was me? Practice finding satisfaction in the difference you make, not in the credit you receive. Look for chances to contribute anonymously. When you do something helpful, resist the urge to make sure others know your role. Surround yourself with people who value substance over appearances, those who ask what you've accomplished instead of how you look while doing it. What goals in your life are more about appearances than real impact? How much greater might your influence grow if you cared less about being seen as purposeful and more about creating genuine change? The most meaningful work often happens in spaces where no one is watching or applauding. Many people perform goodness. The successful embody it, whether noticed or not. Will you choose a purpose that feeds your image, or one that thrives in silence while changing the world around you? Have you noticed how the most accomplished people are selective about their commitments? While others say yes to everything, successful individuals often respond with purposeful silence. They know that every yes to something unimportant is a silent no to something essential. Energy is your most valuable resource, yet most people give it away carelessly. Each time you commit to a project that doesn't align with your goals, attend an event out of obligation, or engage with those who drain your spirit, you spend irreplaceable energy. The noise of endless commitments drowns out the signal of what truly matters. Without clear boundaries protected by deliberate silence, your most important work remains unfinished while your calendar fills with everyone else's priorities. Creating silent boundaries begins with pausing before every commitment. When asked to do something, replace your automatic yes with, "Let me check and get back to you." In that pause, ask yourself 3 questions. Does this align with my priorities? Is this something only I can do? Will I still feel good about this decision next week? Practice saying no directly but kindly, without long explanations that invite debate. Remember, unclear boundaries demand constant maintenance, but clear ones enforce themselves. Robert Jameson learned this the hard way. After several successful yet exhausting projects left him creatively drained, he disappeared from the industry for 3 months. When he returned, he established what colleagues called his silent wall. He stopped answering calls directly, refused to attend industry functions, and declined prestigious opportunities without explanation. Critics labeled him difficult and ungrateful. But when asked about it, he explained, "I realized I was saying yes to everything except what mattered most, creating meaningful films. My silence isn't rejection. It's protection of the energy needed for my best work." Where in your life are you saying yes when silence would serve your true priorities better? How many of your current commitments would you accept if they were offered to you today? Notice how explaining boundaries often turns them into negotiations that weaken them. Most people build their lives responding to the loudest demands. The successful respond only to what matters most. Will you continue letting the noise of others' expectations drown out the quiet voice of your own purpose? Or will you use silence to create the boundaries your best work requires? The strength of your boundaries ultimately shapes the quality of your life's work. Each time you silently decline what doesn't serve your purpose, you make room for what does. This isn't selfishness, it's stewardship of your limited energy for your highest contribution. The world doesn't need more exhausted people saying yes to everything. It needs focused individuals who protect their capacity to do what truly matters. At first, remaining silent in the face of demands may feel uncomfortable, but that discomfort is simply the growing pain of reclaiming your power. Let your silence speak the truth about your time and your priorities. Look closely at leaders in any setting. Those who command genuine respect often speak far less than you'd expect. While others fight for airtime and attention, these quiet forces create impact through attentive presence rather than constant words. Ironically, dominating conversations only weakens your influence as a leader. When you talk too much in meetings, interrupt others, or insist on having the final word, you send a powerful message that your voice matters more than theirs. This may create surface-level compliance, but it destroys genuine commitment. People might follow your directions, yet hold back their best ideas and effort. True leadership influence grows not from speaking more, but from creating space where others can contribute their best thinking. Develop silent leadership by practicing the speak last principle in group settings. Enter conversations with questions instead of statements. When someone shares an idea, respond first with curiosity, not judgment. Count silently to 3 before speaking to avoid cutting people off. Make eye contact with quieter team members and invite their input directly. Track how much you speak compared to others, and gradually reduce your words while improving your listening. Patricia Winters transformed her struggling company with this approach. Once known for dominating every discussion with her expertise, she surprised her team by starting a critical strategy meeting with a single question, and then remained silent for nearly the entire session. When the team looked to her for answers, she simply asked, "What do you think?" The awkward silence eventually opened the door for contributions from people who had never spoken up before. One suggestion from a usually quiet engineer led to their most profitable product line. Later, she admitted, "I realized my expertise had become our biggest liability. It was preventing others from sharing theirs. My silence created space for solutions I could never have provided." How might your own expertise sometimes block better solutions? What would happen if you deliberately spoke less in your next 3 meetings? Notice how uncomfortable it feels to leave silence unfilled. This discomfort shows how strongly we equate leadership with talking. Most people try to lead through assertion, but the truly successful lead through attention. Will you continue seeking influence by dominating, or will you discover the greater strength of silent presence? Remember, silence in leadership isn't passivity. It's an intentional choice to create space for others to think, contribute, and grow. The most powerful statement you can make as a leader is showing that you value others' ideas enough to be quiet and truly listen. Silent confidence proves you are secure in your own worth and willing to shine light on others rather than yourself. Paradoxically, the less you use authority to dominate conversations, the more your influence expands. Your silence doesn't lessen your impact. It multiplies it, fueled by the wisdom and commitment of those around you. Now consider consistency without announcement. Look at people who loudly declare their new habits, diets, or workout routines. Then notice those who quietly transform their lives without any fanfare. The pattern is clear. Those who talk most about discipline often show the least of it in practice. Public commitments create an illusion of progress that can sabotage real achievement. When you announce your intentions, you receive instant recognition and support, which gives a premature sense of accomplishment and reduces motivation to do the hard work. Your brain feels the reward before you've earned it. Worse, early announcements invite unwanted advice and criticism when your new habits are still fragile. True discipline develops in quiet, private spaces where intrinsic motivation grows without external pressure. Build silent discipline by tracking progress privately instead of making public declarations. Begin new habits with a personal 30-day trial before sharing them with anyone. Find satisfaction in the actual results of your discipline rather than in recognition for it. When you do reach meaningful milestones, share the achievement, not the intention. Surround yourself with people who value steady action over enthusiastic declarations. Remember, discipline isn't about bursts of intensity. It's about consistency, built in small, steady moments that often go unnoticed. What changes are you talking about more than actually practicing? How much faster could you progress if you redirected the energy spent on discussing your plans into executing them? Public accountability can easily turn into public performance, draining the private determination real change requires. Most people seek recognition for their discipline. The successful focus on results. Will you keep announcing intentions and receiving premature praise, or will you embrace the quiet power of progress without announcement? The paradox of true discipline is that it rarely looks impressive day by day. It's made of small, consistent actions that seem insignificant on their own, but become transformative when combined. Quiet consistency doesn't make exciting headlines. The world celebrates dramatic transformations, but rarely sees the unglamorous, silent work that makes them possible. By keeping your discipline private, you protect it from turning into a performance for others. In time, your results will speak louder than any words, telling a far more compelling story than your intentions ever could. The most powerful discipline isn't what you talk about. It's what you quietly do every single day when no one is watching. Notice how some people loudly resist every change, while others quietly adapt and thrive. When markets shift, technologies evolve, or circumstances change unexpectedly, most respond with vocal complaint. The most successful meet change with striking silence. Not because they don't feel the disruption, but because they're already adapting to it. Talking about change wastes energy that could be used for adjusting. Complaints, explanations, or criticism only reinforce attachment to the way things were. Every expression of frustration deepens your emotional investment in the past and delays your adjustment to present reality. Talking creates the illusion of action while blocking the mental flexibility true adaptation requires. Build silent adaptability by practicing this. When significant change happens, give yourself a few hours of private reflection before discussing it with others. During that time, ask yourself, given that this change has already occurred, what opportunities might it create? Keep a private journal of your responses instead of venting publicly. And when others invite you to join their complaints, listen respectfully, but steer the conversation toward constructive action. Adaptation happens fastest in minds not busy defending the past. Margaret Coleman proved this during a major industry upheaval. When new regulations threatened traditional business models, competitors rushed to hold press conferences, criticizing and lobbying against the changes. Coleman, however, remained silent. While others fought the inevitable, she quietly restructured her company to take advantage of the new reality. When reporters finally asked why she hadn't spoken out, she replied, "The energy others spent debating whether the rain should fall, we spent building better umbrellas." Change doesn't ask for permission, nor does it respond to criticism. Coleman's company emerged from the transition period with record growth, while vocal competitors struggled to catch up. What change are you resisting instead of adapting to? How much better might your situation be if you shifted energy from complaint to creative response? Talking about frustration may feel productive, but it often keeps you stuck in it. Most people talk about change. The successful quietly turn it into opportunity. Will you spend your limited energy resisting what has already happened, or will you use it to build something new from what is? Silent adaptability isn't passive acceptance. It's a strategic focus on response rather than reaction. The most adaptable people feel the same resistance as everyone else, but they process it privately instead of amplifying it publicly. That silence creates the mental space for creative solutions to surface without being drowned out by noise. While others are busy explaining why change shouldn't happen, the silently adaptable are already discovering how to thrive within it. Meeting disruption with purposeful quiet may not bring the same immediate relief as vocal resistance, but it gives you the ultimate advantage, being first to the future while others remain tied to the past. Look at anyone who has achieved something truly difficult. Behind their visible success lies a common pattern. While others complained, made excuses, or announced defeat, these achievers pressed on with quiet determination, often saying nothing at all about their struggles. Talking about difficulties often becomes an acceptable substitute for overcoming them. When obstacles arise, most people seek comfort by explaining their challenges to others. Yet these conversations, while offering temporary relief, can actually drain the drive needed to break through barriers. Each time you explain why something is difficult or why you might quit, You normalize stopping and build a case for surrender. The most persistent people save that energy for the work itself. Build silent persistence by setting private challenges rather than public ones. When obstacles arise, ask yourself, what's the smallest next step I can take? Then focus entirely on that step. Create a personal rule. Never announce potential failure before it happens. If you need to vent, share only with one trusted advisor instead of spreading discouragement widely. When tempted to explain why you might give up, redirect that energy into trying once more. Persistence isn't about never feeling like quitting. It's about continuing anyway, without needing to announce your struggles. William Harrison embodied this during the troubled construction of his revolutionary design in 1968. When unexpected structural problems appeared, contractors declared the project impossible, and financial backers began pulling out. Reporters called Harrison daily for comments about the apparent failure. Through months of crisis, he offered only one response: "We're working on solutions behind the scenes." He faced repeated setbacks that could have justified quitting. Yet his team admired not only his refusal to stop, but also his silence about the difficulties. When the completed building later won international awards, a journalist asked how he kept faith during the crisis. Harrison replied, "Speaking about the weight I was carrying would have only made it heavier." Words of doubt consume the very energy needed for progress. What challenge are you explaining more than addressing? How much stronger could your persistence become if you stop talking about how hard the path is? Notice how discussing obstacles often makes them feel bigger instead of smaller. Most people look for understanding of their struggles. The successful seek victory over them. Will you keep using your energy to explain why your path is hard? Or will you redirect it silently toward moving forward despite the challenge? The power of silent persistence comes from focusing on action over explanation. When you stop talking about how difficult the journey is, you release yourself from the need to justify failure before it even happens. This silence isn't denial. It's refusing to magnify obstacles through constant discussion. The most persistent people feel the same doubts, frustrations, and temptations to quit as everyone else. The difference is not in what they feel, but in how they handle it. Instead of processing those emotions externally through endless conversations, they channel them internally as fuel for continued effort. Moving forward without announcing your struggles may sometimes feel isolating, but it gives you a vital advantage. While others are still explaining why they might stop, you've already taken the next step, focused on work, not credit. Notice the contrast between those who constantly remind others of their contributions and those who quietly pour their energy into making their work extraordinary. One group chases recognition, the other chases excellence. That contrast reveals much about lasting success. Seeking credit often weakens the quality of your work. When you are constantly worried about recognition, your focus is split between the task itself and how it will be perceived. This divided attention robs you of the total immersion required to produce truly exceptional results. In time, organizations and communities naturally recognize those who put contribution above credit and hold back opportunities from those who appear more concerned with recognition than with collective outcomes. Develop silent excellence by measuring yourself against personal standards rather than external validation. Contribute to projects without needing your name highlighted or special mention. In teamwork, celebrate others' achievements more openly than your own. If recognition doesn't come, ask yourself, was the work still worth doing? If not, reconsider your motivations. The quality of your contribution speaks far more about your value than any amount of self-promotion. Elizabeth Mitchell lived by this principle throughout her groundbreaking career. While colleagues competed for authorship and press attention, she focused entirely on the research itself. Junior team members were often surprised when she added their names to published papers while downplaying her own pivotal contributions. When one of her discoveries gained international acclaim, journalists were puzzled to find Mitchell quietly working on her next project instead of giving interviews. When asked about this pattern, she explained, "I realized early that I couldn't chase both quality and credit. Every moment spent seeking recognition was a moment not spent advancing the work. I chose the work, and recognition eventually followed. Excellence draws recognition far more reliably than recognition creates excellence." What areas of your life show a divided focus between quality and credit? How much could your work improve if you redirected recognition-seeking energy back into excellence itself? Notice how concern over acknowledgement often feels justified, yet it quietly prevents your highest contribution. Most people chase recognition, hoping it will prove their excellence. The successful, however, pursue excellence itself and allow recognition to follow naturally. Will you continue dividing your focus between the quality of your work and the attention it receives, or will you embrace the freedom of excellence for its own sake? The paradox of silent excellence is that it ultimately attracts more meaningful recognition than directly pursuing credit ever could. When you focus solely on making your contribution as valuable as possible, without worrying about who knows your role, you create work that cannot be overlooked. This silent dedication to quality over credit is not about devaluing yourself. It's about understanding that true value doesn't require constant announcement. The most respected individuals in any field are not those who make sure everyone knows their contributions. They are the ones whose work speaks so clearly that others cannot help but notice. Allowing your work to speak for itself shows a confidence that naturally draws both appreciation for your contribution and recognition for the contributor. Now think about building what lasts. Compare those who chase quick results with those who focus on creating something enduring. While many seek immediate progress and visible outcomes, the truly successful operate with striking patience, measuring their efforts not in days or months, but in years or even decades. Impatience often forces shortcuts that undermine lasting success. When you demand immediate results, whether for emotional satisfaction or external validation, you end up making choices aimed at short-term gains instead of long-term value. This rush creates the illusion of progress, but in reality, it often extends the time needed for true achievement. The paradox of success is that slower, more methodical approaches often reach the destination faster than frantic attempts to accelerate. Develop silent patience by extending your time horizons. For important projects, ask yourself, how would my approach change if I thought 5 years ahead instead of 5 months? Create meaningful milestones that celebrate progress along the way, rather than relying only on final outcomes for satisfaction. Practice the discipline of removing unnecessary steps instead of rushing through essential ones. When setbacks come, view them in the context of your extended timeline rather than as emergencies. Patience isn't passive waiting, it's active building, with respect for the time real growth requires. Richard Thompson embodied this when launching his literary magazine. While competitors rushed to market with flashy but shallow publications, he spent nearly 2 years building relationships with writers, refining editorial standards, and creating sustainable systems before releasing the first issue. Investors grew restless, questioning the delay as other magazines were already generating revenue. But when his publication finally launched, it immediately set the standard for literary excellence, while rushed competitors had already begun folding. Asked about his patience, Thompson replied, "They were building magazines. We were building an institution. The timeline must match the ambition. What lasts for decades cannot be rushed into existence in months." So, what important work are you rushing that might benefit from more deliberate development? How might your approach shift if you extended your timeline for key goals? Notice how the pressure for quick results often produces solutions that don't actually save time. They only create the appearance of progress. Most people sacrifice quality for speed. The successful know when speed must be sacrificed for quality. Will you keep demanding immediate outcomes from processes that require time, or will you align your patience with the significance of what you're building? The power of silent patience lies in recognizing that meaningful creation follows natural rhythms that cannot always be accelerated. Just as a farmer cannot rush crops by pulling on the shoots, some achievements cannot be hurried beyond their natural pace. This patient perspective isn't resignation to slow progress. It's respect for the necessary seasons of growth. The most patient individuals are never idle. They build actively, with an understanding of which elements can be accelerated and which require time to mature. Working steadily without the constant reward of visible results may feel less satisfying than the quick dopamine hit of immediate progress, but it enables you to build what others cannot. Lay foundations deep enough to support lasting impact rather than chasing temporary attention. Focus on learning instead of displaying knowledge. Observe people in learning environments. Many rush to show what they already know, while the truly successful often ask simple questions or remain quiet, absorbing new insights even in areas where they have expertise. Displaying current knowledge often blocks the path to new understanding. When your main goal in conversation becomes showing others how much you know, you create two major barriers to learning. First, while you're talking, you cannot listen, which closes the door to fresh ideas. Second, when your mind is focused on organizing what you already know to present it, you close yourself off to new perspectives. Over time, this pattern creates intellectual stagnation disguised as expertise. Cultivate the mindset of a silent student by entering conversations with questions instead of statements. Practice the discipline of withholding your knowledge unless specifically asked. Before disagreeing, seek to understand the other perspective fully through inquiry. In meetings or classes, challenge yourself to ask at least one genuine question before offering any information. Even when you hold expertise in a subject, adopt the phrase, "I'm listening," rather than rushing to share your view. True learning happens in silence, not in speech. Margaret Anderson demonstrated this shift in 1962. Though recognized as an authority in traditional markets, she noticed younger analysts spotting opportunities she had overlooked. Instead of asserting her superior experience, she began holding private sessions with these junior colleagues. She asked questions, listened carefully, and took notes despite her senior position. When one analyst asked why she didn't share more of her own insights, she replied, "I already know everything I know. My future success depends on what I don't know, and that can only be discovered through silence." This approach allowed her to identify emerging markets years before competitors, extending her success decades beyond peers who remained locked in outdated expertise. So ask yourself, where in your life are you speaking as an expert when you could be listening as a student? How much could your knowledge grow if you approached familiar subjects with curiosity rather than quick answers? Notice how the social reward of appearing knowledgeable often feels more gratifying than the quiet process of actually becoming more knowledgeable. Most people use conversation to display what they already know. The successful use it to expand what they can learn. Will you keep prioritizing the appearance of knowing, or will you embrace the silent vulnerability that leads to real growth? The paradox of the silent student is that it takes more confidence to ask simple questions than to give complex answers. Showing what you know brings quick status and validation, while adopting the learner's mindset requires setting aside your need for recognition of expertise. Yet this silent approach doesn't reduce your value, it expands it. The most respected minds aren't those who know the most at one moment. They're the ones who keep growing when others stop. Your willingness to step away from the comfort of appearing knowledgeable creates the space where genuine wisdom can emerge. Over time, the question that stretches your understanding serves you far more than the impressive answer that only confirms what you already know. Now consider celebrating in private. Notice how differently people handle achievement. Many broadcast every success, chasing maximum recognition. But the most consistently successful often mark milestones with surprising restraint, sometimes saying nothing at all about major accomplishments. Public celebration of every win creates vulnerability to disappointment. When you depend on external validation for your sense of achievement, three problems arise. First, you become reliant on others to feel accomplished. Second, you create an unsustainable pattern where each success must outshine the last just to deliver the same emotional reward. Third, and most dangerous, public celebration signals to competitors exactly where you're succeeding, inviting a response before your position is secure. The most sustainable success often develops in protective quiet. Practice silent victory by creating private celebration rituals that don't depend on others' acknowledgement. For significant achievements, take personal time to honor your progress before announcing it publicly. When tempted to broadcast accomplishments, ask yourself, will sharing this now increase or reduce its long-term impact? Be more vocal about team victories than personal ones. Remember, celebration is for completion, not validation. The achievement itself is the reward, not others' recognition of it. James Richardson proved this when launching his revolutionary product. While competitors staged elaborate events for minor milestones, his team worked in remarkable privacy. When they finally achieved a breakthrough the industry had chased for years, his response surprised everyone. Instead of holding a press conference, He simply took his team to dinner, acknowledging the win privately while continuing the work of implementation. Because competitors remained unaware, no counter-strategies were developed during the critical launch phase. Years later, when asked about his restraint, Richardson explained, "Premature celebration serves the ego, but endangers the work." The greatest competitive advantage is often the victory no one knows about, until its results become impossible to ignore. Where is your need for recognition creating avoidable vulnerability in your work or life? How might strategic silence around certain wins actually increase their impact? Notice how immediate validation feels essential, yet it fosters dependence on responses you can't control. Most people celebrate to be seen succeeding. The successful focus on extending success beyond the current win. Will you keep chasing maximum visibility for every victory, or lean into the power of accomplishments that remain private until the results speak for themselves? The wisdom of a silent victory is knowing the difference between achievement and announcement. Private accomplishment builds momentum without drawing attention that can create new obstacles. This restraint isn't self-denial. It's choosing satisfaction in the work itself, not in others' acknowledgement. The most consistently successful aren't those who celebrate loudest. They translate each win directly into progress toward the next goal. Your capacity to find fulfillment in private results signals real confidence and creates more durable success than any burst of external praise. Let your outcomes speak louder than announcements. They'll tell a more compelling story about your value than your words ever could. This pattern reveals much about original thinking. Premature feedback often weakens creative breakthroughs. When early ideas are exposed too soon to evaluation, 3 problems usually arise. First, unique concepts naturally meet resistance because they don't fit established patterns. Without time to mature, they're easily dismissed before their true value can be shown. Second, early feedback tends to focus on surface flaws instead of core potential, pulling your attention away from what matters most in development. Third, and most critical, external input during the formative stage pushes ideas toward conventional thinking, right when unconventional approaches carry the greatest chance for breakthrough. To protect your creativity, practice silent development by creating judgment-free zones for early work. Capture ideas without rushing to evaluate them. Build the discipline of exploring concepts deeply before seeking outside opinions. Create private spaces and time dedicated solely to uninterrupted development. When you must share early ideas, choose only those rare people who can respond to potential, not polish. Remember, creativity requires protection from premature judgment, especially your own. Where in your process might you be seeking feedback too soon? Before your ideas have fully taken shape, how much could your most original thinking gain from extended protection in silence? Notice how the comfort of early validation often feels necessary. But this need for reassurance often pulls you back toward conventional thinking, when originality demands the courage to endure temporary discomfort. Most people create with constant external reference points. The successful trust their vision enough to nurture it in private. Will you keep seeking immediate feedback for fragile ideas? Or will you give your creativity the silent space it needs to become extraordinary? The true power of silent creativity lies in knowing that original thought must temporarily break away from conventional wisdom to reach its full potential. This detachment isn't permanent. Feedback becomes invaluable once your vision has developed enough clarity and strength to withstand it without distortion. The most innovative creators aren't those who reject outside perspective altogether, but those who carefully choose when and how to let it enter their process. Your ability to develop ideas in extended privacy, enduring the uncertainty of working without constant validation, may feel isolating. Yet this silence is what allows your most valuable contributions to emerge, not work that merely extends old conventions, but ideas that transform them into something unimaginable. Now it's time to unlock the silent power mastered by history's most influential figures. Embrace silence, not as the absence of speech, but as the presence of control. Let it speak louder than words, commanding respect and authority in every interaction. Make your presence felt without uttering a sound. Carry this power into every room, every negotiation, and every decision. Master it, and watch the world lean in to listen. Wishing you health, happiness. And remember to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily.